Hello. I think I'm about a minute early, but no, 10 o'clock. There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Elliot, and I work with the Two Bit Circus Foundation. I am my official title is the Education and Fun Learning Coordinator. It's a playful learning coordinator. My apologies. I'm a little nervous if you hadn't noticed, but we're gonna get through this. So yeah, I also work on digital music, which I've been doing for over 20 years now, since it was kind of a new thing. But I really love it. It's always been a huge passion of mine. It's something that I love to do on the side. I have a group with an album out, but it's more of just a passion that I really love to do. So today, for my live stream educational experience, I want to help kids and their parents to try to figure out ways that they can work on projects together that could be a lot of fun. And so I did some research and I found a website that hosts an online digital audio, DAW, which is a digital audio workshop. Again, bear with me. Yeah, so let me just take off my camera that you're seeing me with right now so you can see my desktop, and you will see soundation.com. So anybody that's going to follow along with today's lesson, the first step is going to be to go to soundation.com, which is the website you see up right there. And this is a free site. You sign up for an account. All you have to do is give them an email and verify it. So everybody, if you want to get started on that right now, I'm going to talk just a little bit more about what we're going to be looking at and what we're going to be doing today. Yeah, so get started with that whole process and then let me know through the chat window. And I'm going to try to bring that up right now because I just realized I don't actually have the chat open right now. There we go. So that shouldn't affect you guys, and now I can see what everybody's saying. So, okay, anybody that has any questions or anybody that's working on it and needs a hand, if you get stuck at some part of the process, let me know. Signing up for Soundation is really, really easy. If you have a Google account already, you can sign in directly using the Google account. It'll have a little button in there you can see if you just, I'll click on sign up. So they have a free account over here. That's the one that you're going to want. That lets you do 10 projects, no more than 700 loops and effects, which is plenty when you're just learning. It comes with its own set of virtual instruments, which is something I'm going to talk about later. And you can export audio at an MP3 quality. They say low quality, but most of the audio that you're hearing right now these days is an MP3. You know, it may not be the highest bit rate, but it's gonna be enough that you'll be able to share music with your friends and show them what you worked on. And it's a great place to get a start and just start figuring this whole process out. So you're going to want to click on Get Free down there. And as I said, it'll bring you in here. And you're going to want to sign up with Google, sign up with Facebook, or if you have an email and you want to just type in your email and password, you do that here. Check off that you're over 13 or have a parent with you if you're not over 13 and you want to do this whole lesson. I highly encourage parents to be a part of it because it is it's a very fun, very interesting process, and by the end, you and your kid will have a really cool track that you made together, and you know that's pretty hard to beat. So I'm gonna just jump back in really quick to the login here because I already have an account. So that takes me to the same place. I'll log in with my account. And that'll bring us into here. So this is the community page on Soundation, and a big thing that they do is they try to encourage people to work together on projects, which is a really great way to advance what you're doing in music. They have different challenges and stuff, and again, I'm not working with the website or advertising for them or anything. I just happened to find it and think it was very cool. I personally work on a program called Ableton Live. I would really recommend anybody that really loves music and wants to make it a real part of their life, try to get a copy of Ableton Live. It's expensive for the whole studio version, definitely, but they have a really, really great trimmed down version called Ableton Live Lite, which you can get for free if you purchase any piece of hardware that works with it. So if you were to get like a USB keyboard so that you can play notes on a keyboard while you're making your music, you can take a picture of that and email it to Ableton, and they will give you a license key for a free version of Ableton Live Lite, which I highly recommend everybody try to do that. But getting started on today's lesson, this is the Soundation Studio that we are looking at right now. This is where it opens up and takes you to. So if you have already set yourself up with Soundation, awesome, and follow along as we go. If not, feel free to just watch for this, and I'm gonna just really be kind of trying to explain a lot of what the idea is behind making a track and how they work, how everything goes together. One of the things I really like with Soundation that I think is going to be really good for this lesson is I'm just looking at the comments here, is a mobile version, just in case we're watching from our phones or for a tablet. That is a really good question. If you're on a tablet, I think you should be able to still access it, as it is a .com website. So everything that you are doing on everything you do for your song is happening on their website. It's not happening on your phone or your tablet. It might be hard on a phone because you're going to be looking at a really small screen. But yeah, pretty much anything you have. And that's really why I wanted to use this particular site. Is I went through a bunch of different sites that had an online digital audio workspace like this, but a lot of them had issues where after you add a fourth or a fifth track, it starts to glitch and you lose little bits of sound, and that can be really frustrating when you're trying to, especially when you're just starting out and you're trying to have it sound good. You want to make something that is what you hear in your head. So this one will keep up with you, and if you have a tablet or a phone, you want to try it on that, I say go for it. If you have a problem, then let me know, and I'll try to think about that going forward. But yeah, for today, I want to just take a look at some of these presets that come along in Soundation. So if you look at the screen here, you'll see over on the side you have these tracks. Each one of these represents an audio channel, and that can be used as either a channel that's going to have an actual audio sample, like a loop or a sound wave. And it can also be used, see down here you'll see one called Simple Synth, and that's going to be a virtual instrument. They're commonly called VSTs, or virtual synthesizer technology. That's a instrument that your computer is going to generate the sounds itself and play. And there are virtual instruments for every real instrument that exists, and then there are thousands of just people who sit home and figure out how to make crazy new sounds and upload them for the world to share. So lots of really great free resources out there. But yeah, let's jump in here and take a look. So again, what I'm going to be doing today is all contained within the Soundation platform. I could jump here and just start a blank song, and that would, we'd be starting from scratch. I'm going to open up one of their preset examples, though, so we can take a look at the way that they built a song. And, one of the things that helped me a lot when I was first learning was, I call it reverse engineering, which, most people familiar with STEAM education will know a lot about engineering. And reverse engineering is, of course, just the process of taking something apart. So I would take a song I really loved and try to take it apart so I could understand how to rebuild something like that myself. So let's start out with this hip hop one. We're going to open up the preset for the hip hop track. And there you go. We don't need the tour. I don't know why it's popping up. It's going to bring up this little tour. I'm just going to press skip because I'm going to be your tour guide today, not Soundation. Okay, so we'll want to just give it a minute, because as we are working off of their website, that takes them a minute to just kind of upload all of the sounds and get it ready to play. This at the top is this is your grid bar. So any song is going to be broken down by a grid that is going to represent the time signature of the song, which you can see right down here. You'll see this is a 4/4 time signature track, which just means that for every bar there's going to be 4 beats. So it's a very standard time signature. It's the one that you're most familiar with hearing. There are some that deviate from that, but typically when you think of a song, If it's a hip hop, you're thinking kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if it's an electronic track, it's got a kick drum, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 4/4 time signature. So this song is at 91 beats per minute. This 91 right here represents the tempo, or the BPM, which stands for beats per minute. This song that they made is at 91 beats per minute. We're going to leave it there just because I don't want to really change up too much on what they did. But yeah, let's take a look at their song. Let's hear it. So in order to play the song, just hit the space bar. You want the playhead to be right at the first bar, and hit the space bar. And it's not a long song. It's about 30 or 40 seconds, I believe. Oh, that's a breakdown. Aha, psyched me out. So while the track is playing, if you're looking at each of those channels, you'll see they each have a different box on them. Each one of those boxes is representing either an instrument on these top channels, where it says Super Saw, Simple Synth. These are all actual virtual instruments. And then down here, these are actual audio files. This one is the kick drum. The one right beneath it is the snare. And there's another snare and some hi-hats. So this song is a mixture of digital instruments and actual audio files that are recorded as sound waves. Yeah, and most of the songs that you make are going to be a combination of the two of these. So it's a process of, picking the instruments and the sounds that you like the most and kind of working with them. But let's take a look through this one just so we can kind of analyze and break down what we were just hearing. So if we look through it, you'll see there's only, in this beginning part here, you can loop audio, by the way, at the top on the time signature. You see this little kind of dark yellowish bar. If I click on that, it'll light up, and that becomes a loop now. So if I were to play the song, it's only going to play that section that has been looped. And this is really helpful when you're, building up drums or you're adding instruments, so you can kind of hear as it's going exactly what's happening. But this is our intro loop, and we can see that there's really two key elements that are taking place. There is the second snare. This is how you can solo, just pressing the little S on the channel. So right now, that's a very simple, just a little snare line. And let's go down and listen to this audio wave below that says synth and effects. So now this is the kind of thing that you can typically see at the beginning of a song. It's something I would put at the beginning of a song. It's a synth, and you can see from the waveform that it gets larger towards the end of this loop. Now the reason for that is, and I'm just looking at this and not hearing it at full volume, but generally when you see a wave going from smaller to larger like that, it's a sound wave that's been cut and reversed. And I feel pretty confident saying that because you can see right at the end there is a cut mark where this bar up here is a different bar of audio than this bar. So this bar was likely facing the other direction, and they right-clicked on it and hit reverse clip. So if I reverse it right now, it'll put it back forward. That actually sounds more reversed, so so they had a different way of doing it, but that is a very useful tip if you want to create kind of a cool building sound at the beginning of your song. You can create any sort of a sound like that and just reverse in order to create that. So yeah, let's move this little loop bar. I'm hearing Are you guys able to hear the music? I'm listening in the tablet. Some people are saying that they can't hear it. Let me know if you're able to hear what I'm doing, please. So I'm going to jump over to the next section, though, and just loop this intro part. You guys can't hear the audio. Oh, my goodness. All right, give me 1 second here. Let me see if I can change the... Maybe I need to change the settings on this so that you can hear. Audio, desktop audio. Alright guys, well I'm really sorry to hear you're not hearing my audio, and I'm trying to figure out how we can fix that. So you guys are not getting that audio at all though. Shoot. Well, I apologize for the audio issues. Yeah, Mike from 2-Bit just made a great suggestion there that this would be a really good time to put the software on your computer. And honestly, as much as it's kind of really not that great that I can't lead you along in this lesson this time, if you have the software up on your computer, it would actually be better for you to just hear my voice, so I'm not speaking over my beat over your beat, which would sound like shoes in a dryer, and nobody likes that. So yeah, if you guys want to take a second to get the software installed, and sorry, you don't even have to install anything. It's literally just opening up the website. And yeah, if you do that, we could kind of go over this track together and you can hear the audio on your end. In the meantime, while everybody's doing that, I'm going to just kind of take a visual look through so that we can kind of break down visually what's happening in this song. And as you can see, so on track number 1 here, it's a super saw is the name of the instrument. I'm going to solo it. And again, I know you guys are not able to hear this right now, so it does very little to help you. But it's a very kind of just a distorted synthesizer that's used to kind of build the anticipation at the beginning of the song. Yeah, and it's going to be layered over the bass line, which is going to drop in right about here, if you can see in the song. So structurally, the way they have it laid out is a brief 4-bar introduction, that then jumps into what is the start of the song, just the drumming, some of the intro melody, and the synth here, which is backing up the melody of the song. But you'll see that this extra set of hi-hats come in at the same time as this simple synth on channel 2. So this is where the bass line comes in. And if I double click on it right here, you'll see these are the actual notes that it's playing. So this little purple highlighted square right now, which is 1 bar long, contains these notes that are in the edit note clip right here. All right. And these hi-hats, again, this is, hip hop and trap music these days. There are a lot of hi-hats, a lot of real rapid rolls and rising and dropping. So this is kind of coming in to add intensity to that section of the song. All right. Let me just take a quick look over at Twitch and see what everybody's saying. Alright guys, well yeah, I guess I'm just going to continue on with the tutorial here, and I wish I could find a way to share my audio with you. Audio out to you. No, I don't want to spend this whole time trying to troubleshoot, so let me just try to do whatever I can that's going to be valuable. Okay, so I think the best thing for me to do then is I'm just going to look at the various aspects of Soundation right now rather than try to analyze a track and break that down. Let me kind of explain what it comes with and how you'll be able to utilize that. So that'll give you an idea and you'll be able to go forward and work on tracks. And then I'll be doing another lesson next week, and by then I'll have this audio issue figured out. And we can do something where we build a track together. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm just going to create a new song. I'm not going to save that one because that was one of their standard little demos. And so this over here is your sound library. And you'll see the library is selected at the top. There's also a section for imported sounds, which is currently still empty, but this will be somewhere that you're gonna do a lot of work. This is something that you can import your own samples and loops. You can bring in other artists' samples that they have. Hold on, I'm gonna bring myself back up here a little bit since looks like a lot of it's just going to be me talking. So why don't I engage you guys a little bit more? All right, and I'll put me over here. Okay, so let's look back over here. So yeah, as I was saying, this section right here, so it looks like actually you need to upgrade to unlock that part, which I believe you can still drag and drop samples in, but I could be wrong there. So let's just focus on the library right now because this is what comes with Soundation. So inside of Soundation, they give you these sound packs. All of this stuff listed right here. These are all different sound packs, which is kind of back when we still had CDs and people used CD-ROMs. We would have sample CDs. And I remember buying several of them, and they were very, very expensive. Luckily, nowadays, you can get sample CDs for next to nothing, but an important thing to keep in mind is also, the materials that you're using are the materials that you're going to be finishing with. And there's an artist that I have a great deal of respect for, and I recommend, if you guys want to learn more about this, he has a lot of tutorials available. He goes by the artist name Ill Gates. And he helped me a lot just understanding really wise ways to set up your studio and your software so that you have a creative workflow that doesn't become impeded. One of the things that a lot of people really struggle with in music is, Got what is your DJ name, Elliot? um, I've had several because I was DJing for quite some time. As an artist, I go by Intent, and my band is Bend and Peel. So bendandpeel.com if anybody wants to check that out. Yeah. And so, anyways, as I was explaining, Ill Gates has a really great way of kind of breaking down the philosophy of music and the philosophy of making music. And, you know, the truth is, I feel like we are often the main thing that steps in here. Okay, everyone here, what is your DJ name? Yeah, everybody, let one out. One of the main things that steps in our way is our own thought process. And something with music is, you know, you really don't want to overthink. You know, music is about conveying emotion. Music is about sharing a feeling that you have, whether that's excitement or sorrow or longing or, you know, whatever emotion you're experiencing. Music is a really beautiful way to process those feelings and to create something beautiful out of it. You know, some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard has come from people that have had really difficult lives and people that have really had to struggle, and they're able to turn that experience into a shared experience with other people that have gone through similar things. So, yeah. Anyways, keeping creative and not letting yourself get caught up in the exact, you know, not worrying about whether it's perfect, not worrying about, you know, whether you have the right sound here or there. I mean, what's really important is getting your ideas down. And so one of the things that that, you know, I really took from some of the workshops that I listened to of Ill Gates were that you want to really separate your studio time into two different sessions. So you want to have, and he explained it as nighttime and daytime sessions. um, a lot of people watching this are probably going to have much earlier bedtimes than he does, so you might want to make it morning and evening sessions. But basically, you want to have a time that is dedicated to collecting sounds that you like, collecting samples, finding the material that you're going to use in your music, as well as any virtual instruments that you like. So, you know, in Soundation, you know, you could spend hours just creating a little sound loop on one of their instruments and then changing the instrument over and over to find one that really appeals to you and gives you something that, you know, you really like. And once you find something like that, finding a way to group all of those elements together so that you know where to look for the sounds that you already like. That's a huge, huge help because it keeps you from spending hours just looking through sounds, which will pull you away from the creative process. I'm sure it's like that for most other people out there. I know when I'm creating, you know, you get into a groove. You hit a moment where you just want to keep creating, and it's working, and everything is sounding good. But I've often found myself, you know, thinking, oh, yeah, that's just not the right snare drum right there, and you know, I'll start trying to replace it, and then an hour and a half later, the song is nowhere further along, and I'm still playing with snare drums. And a big part of that is that I've stepped outside of my creative brain into my intellectual brain, and I've started analyzing and thinking instead of feeling and creating. So I think that's the greatest piece of input that I received in my, you know, musical adventure was exactly that. You know, put together a collection of sounds that you are extremely happy with, that you already know. These are the instruments I love. These are the drums that I love. These are, you know, I can drop these in anywhere and I can make it work, and I'm going to make something that sounds good. And yeah, maybe you still have to swap some stuff out and change some stuff around, but you're making something that is going to already be starting from a place that is quality. You know, if something sounds awful, you're never going to be able to make it sound great. You know, you can't undo distortion. You can't remove, you know, issues with audio. You can create them. You can take clean audio and add distortion because you want it to sound dirtier. But if you have a sound that just sounds messed up, chances are you're not going to be able to get it where you want it to be, and you're better off starting from a clean place. So with that being said, in Soundation, they've done a lot of that work for you already. They've created all of these packs of samples where they have So right here we've got the Sepia Hip Hop Pack. Now if I click on that, that's going to bring up all the samples that are contained within there. So you can, and they're all listed as to, you know, what they are. Like this is a vintage piano, kitchen sink, G minor, things like kitchen sink. That's just the name that they're attaching to it to separate it. They probably put everything but the kitchen sink on there as far as processing and effects, and I'm guessing that's where the name came from. Yeah, but you'll see you've got drum loops in here, you've got piano, you've got brass, you've got different keyboards, acoustic instruments, you've got lots of different things that you can play with here. I'm going to drag one of these over just so, again, you can see what's happening. Oh, I'm sorry, I've erased all the tracks. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is to create a new track. Which is escaping me right now, so I'm going to create a new song from a template. I'm still learning Soundation too, so bear with me. As I said, Ableton is the program I am most comfortable and most familiar with. But this will also, actually let me use this as an opportunity instead of a problem. So I just opened up that dubstep track again, and this is a really an interesting tool that you can use as well. If you like elements from the song, I'm going to remove the window of my face because it's blocking what I'd like you to see here. But if you see, I'm just going to click on some of these channels, or these audio tracks I should say, and I'm going to erase some of the stuff that I don't need. I'm going to erase the kick and snare as well. The Wub Machine was kind of cool. You guys haven't heard it yet on your end, but I think you'll like it when you do. And that's got 3 different levels put in here. Okay, and so this is an interesting thing we can look at in this song, and I don't need to play for you in order for you to understand why it's cool. If you look at each, so these 3 tracks all have this instrument called the Wub Machine on it. Now, you would think that, well, why would they have 3 tracks with the same instrument, right? Because isn't it going to make the same sound? And you'd be right to think that, except for our effects chains. So if you see right here at the bottom of this track, it has a little drop-down menu, and it says Effect 1. And if I click on it, you'll see the effect that is playing right now is an equalizer. Let's see if it'll bring it up. Yeah, okay, great. So this is our equalizer right here. And what an equalizer does is it allows you to cut off and rise levels within a sound. So if you had a drum loop, for example, that you really like the hi-hats in it, but the kick drum just doesn't really have enough of a punch, you can use the equalizer to cut off that low end frequency of the kick drum so it doesn't have that bass frequency, and you'll still have the high end part of that frequency, which is the hi-hats and the snares. And depending on where you cut it off, you can get rid of the snares, you can just keep the hi-hats. The sounds will still be there, they'll just be very faint. And often, in hip-hop, people will do this, and then they will layer an 808 drum, or an 808 is just an example. It's a Roland 808 is a drum machine that came out back in, I believe, the either late 70s or early 80s, and kind of became a staple for hip-hop production. So there's a lot of drums that are very, hip-hop oriented, and a lot of the times hip-hop producers will take an older drum loop that has some very cool percussion happening, and they will use equalizers to cut off all of that low-end frequency, and then layer on top of that drum loop with their own drums. So going back to this, the reason that these 3 are here, this one also has an equalizer, but you can see it has a different parameter setting on the equalizer than the first one. It's taken off more of the low. They're pretty close. They also panned this second one a little bit to the right by 11%, which you can see right there. And so this little knob right here, if you grab and select it, you can pan sounds from one side to the other. This is a really useful tool in mixing as well, because you want to create space for all of your sounds. I'm going to do a lot of explaining on that later, but just to kind of finish up on the point with these three instruments all having the same instrument on them, you'll see this one that becomes more of a main part in the song has an equalizer, a compressor, and a reverb. So they've put the equalizer on just like they did with the other two channels. Then they've compressed it, which is something that, like it says, compresses the sound down to make the sound waves slightly more condensed, so that your peaks and your valleys and your sound waves are not quite as far apart. This is something that you'll see a lot in electronic music and modern stuff, because it has a lot more of that punch and snap to the snare drum. A lot of, more classic rock, or going back into music that was more traditionally played with instruments. You want to have those varying levels. It's called dynamic range, and it's something that gives the music its own type of feel. So each thing has its place, and they all fit in different areas. But so with this track right here, I've gone through now and I've erased all of the audio tracks that were occurring below these instruments. Which I'm realizing I wanted to keep one, so I just did Command Z there to undo, and I undid the last two erases. And I'm just going to keep this one because it's an audio track. Let me get rid of this effect because we don't want anything on there right now. I'm going to erase the audio that's on the track right now. And since we're in the dubstep preset, let's go to the dubstep sample pack over here. And basically now I've removed everything here except for the instruments, so we don't have any drums. So the first thing I would really need to do would be to look through here, or I could search drums. Well, it doesn't like that, so let's just go through and we'll just look in. Oh, it's like the dubstep pack doesn't, that's why nothing came up. Doesn't have any drums in there for me. Okay. So we'll go back and let's find something that, might be in that. Trap music is often in a similar range. They have it at 70 BPM here. I'm at 165 over here, so it would be 140 if I doubled it. If I were to drag this over onto the audio track, it's going to then ask me, this file is not at the same tempo as your song. Would you like to time stretch to fit? I'm going to time stretch this one so that it is the right tempo. It's not going to work for this one because it's just going to make it insanely fast. But this is a process of kind of remixing what they've already done. So if I just keep going through looking for something in a similar BPM, which is listed over here, you see these are all at 128 BPM. So this is just a generic kind of a 4 on the floor kick drum, like I was talking about earlier. I'm gonna time stretch it so that it matches. So that becomes a very just 4 kick drum in a row, 4 on the floor beat. And if I were to continue copying that, or just grabbing it at the top there where there's the little loop icon, you can drag it out and it will continue to loop the piece that you have. So now it's playing that same dubstep song that we were listening to earlier, that I was listening to, unfortunately. But yeah, now it's playing a completely different drum beat. So this is how easy it is to just remix a beat that you like. If you find something or a sample that you really enjoy, you can put that sample down. And, for example, I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to do it the other way this time and get rid of the instruments that they have on here. And just keep that one audio channel I have right now that was the kick drum. And I'll just change that to drums because I'm going to be using a loop. We have no effects on it. And I'm going to say clone channel. And that's just going to give me another audio channel right here. And I can change that to whatever sample. We'll just call it that for now. But now that I've emptied out the entire workspace, I can create a song at any speed that I want. So if we want to go back into the sample packs that we have in here, we have the Sepia Hip Hop pack that we were looking at. And let me say hello again. Hello. Yeah, so now that we have the Sepia Hip Hop pack here, we can kind of look through and see, okay, I really wish you guys were able to hear all of these along with me so that it was more of a group consensus on what was cool and what isn't. I don't want to be the one making all of those decisions. So here's a drum loop. I like it a lot. It's a very kind of 90s hip-hop style beat, which I'm really liking. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to drag it out here, and I'm going to put it on the drums channel. And it's going to ask me, do I want to... So the options here, saying the sample, the MCS 110 drum loop jump cables, jump cables, that's kind of cool, is not the same tempo as your song. So it's a different tempo or a different beats per minute than the workspace that we're set up in right now. And it's asking, would you like me to time stretch or pitch the file to fit? So the choice is there. If we time stretch it, it will take that sample and it will maintain the same pitch. It will maintain the same feel acoustically. It's going to sound the same, but it's going to be at a different speed. In this case, the song is at 165, and this is a drum loop that's at 110 beats per minute, so it would speed it way up and would likely not sound good at all. Sometimes you can do that. Jungle music or drum and bass music, if anybody is familiar with that, that largely originated out of producers taking samples from funk songs, a lot of the same samples that hip-hop producers would later, or not later, around the same time, honestly, would take and turn into, huge, epic hip-hop classics that, we all know. A lot of those same drum loops have been used at twice their tempo and used for drum and bass and jungle music. So there are times when it will work. In this instance, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to, and we don't want to make a dubstep song. We want to make a hip-hop song. So what I'm going to say is, I'm sorry, I was going to explain pitch as well. So time stretch would be stretching that sample without changing the sounds. If you were to choose pitch, it'll change the length of the sample to match the grid and the tempo that you have set, but it'll change the pitch of the sample in the same way that if you've ever had or heard somebody playing a record on a turntable and you've seen them slide the little knob that makes it go faster or slower, you hear the actual tone of the voice or the instruments. As it slows down, it gets lower, and as it speeds up, it becomes higher pitched. So that's the same concept here. If you were to change the length of this sample by pitch, it would adjust the actual acoustic sounds you're hearing. It will change the pitch that you're hearing, and it'll alter the loop in a significant way, which might be something you want to do, and it might not. So again, that's completely something that's going to be up to you. What I want to do right now, though, is do not adjust the tempo at all. So I'm just going to leave it at 165. If I were to try to play it right now, you can see it is not lined up properly to the grid. It stops at bar 7, which is not divisible by 4, and as we know, this is a 4/4 pattern, so everything is going to be in divisions of 4. Each bar is going to have 4 beats. 4 bars are going to create a loop of 16, and so on and so on. So in order to fix that, all I have to do is go down to the bottom of the screen here where the tempo is and change it there to 110, which matches the sample that I just brought in, the hip-hop jumper cable drums. And if I look back at my sequencer now, you will see that the sample now goes right to the end of the fourth bar, which is exactly what I want. Another shortcut when you're working in Soundation here is if you hit enter, it'll jump back to the very beginning of the song, and then you can hit the space bar again to play it. I wish you guys could hear because it is a very cool loop. Any of you at home that have set up already, try this one out. It's a good one. Hit the enter to go back to the beginning again. And now the process really is just about going through the sounds that you have available and finding stuff that works and that matches with what you're doing. But obviously, I don't want to spend too much time on that right now because you can't hear the actual sounds that I'm making. So I'd like to just focus on what might actually help when you do have this program up and running. So what I'm going to do here is just zoom in on the drum loop that I've made. And I'm going to go up to this little scissor tool here. And if I come back down here now, I'm going to start cutting little splice points into my loop right where I see all of those drums hitting. So these really tiny little, these little things here, that's a hi-hat. The first thing you see, that's the kick drum. The kick drum is generally always going to come at the very top of the beat. The exception to that being some Caribbean music where they'll have a snare coming in first, sometimes in calypso or some dancehall tracks they'll have a snare starting out the song rather than a kick. Or sometimes in songs like in hip-hop you'll have a snare intro that leads into the drum beat, which would start with a kick. But in any case, I'm going to go through and just kind of cut up these drums, because what that then allows us to do is create little remixed drum loops ourselves. So I just cut those up. I'm going to go back up here and I'm just going to move this one. You know, I don't need to move it. I'm actually just going to use the loop tool that I showed you. And I'm just going to loop the part that I've made the splices in now. And the reason I'm just looping that area is I'm going to start making what is referred to as edits. That's a pretty common term that I'm sure you're all used to hearing in school, or, you know, for whatever you're doing, you have to edit. You know, you have to go back and rewrite. And this is kind of a process of rewriting this drum loop. So we have a loop that is what we originally brought over. But if I want to start changing it up, and, you know, I was talking about Caribbean music, for example, like there's different kinds of patterns that you can do that lend to different styles of music. Let me cut one of these hats so I can make a little roll there. Okay, I was gonna start out doing like a little dancehall drum loop, but just making that little difference with the hats right there made it sound really, really cool. And if this is a song that I were trying to produce and work on, I think I would probably want to keep that loop I just made because I like it. So what I would do is I'm just going to move this one down to the end. This is the one that I haven't affected at all yet. And then I'm going to highlight the new version of that loop that I just made by chopping some pieces up. And I'm going to copy it, or move it over to there. I should have just copied it, but it's very easy to just copy it back now. And then I'm going to zoom in again and make some more edits. And to me, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole music making process. I love drums. I never actually played real drums, but as soon as I learned that I could play with them on a computer, I was hooked and have been doing it ever since. So yeah, I'm going to click off of the loop just so that they were all highlighted. If you see like that, when it's all blue, even if I try to click on one of these, it still has everything highlighted. So you don't want to do that. That's not going to allow you to edit anything. If you just click off the loop somewhere, you can then go back in and grab individual splices. So this was our snare. I didn't cut that one. So let me cut this snare, and I'm going to cut at the back end of this snare too, just so I can make it like a very fast double up. Yeah, so that's definitely getting where I like it. And I love to do a little snare roll at the end where I'll try to make it go real quick. Let's see if I can cut this down even more. Yeah, so I'm going to cut that in half and then copy this 4 times. And this is where digital music becomes really, really cool to me, is that you can create stuff that doesn't happen with real instruments. You know, it's a digital environment that has capabilities that regular instruments don't necessarily have. For example, in this drum loop, now I am sure there are drummers that are capable of doing a snare roll that fast. Shout outs to Jalen from 2-Bit, because I'm sure he can hit it that quickly too. But it's something that it changes the feel of it when it's digital, because you're not getting the tail end of that sound wave. It's getting cut off, and you're just chopping directly to the start of that next drum. For example, I could take out these intermediate parts. So if I cut this guy right about there, and I erase that, I could now turn this into every other snare, and it's going to leave a silence there. So instead of da 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 da, oh, sorry about that. That shouldn't sound. So instead of having that typical ba 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 ba, and with a drum, you know, it's a skin on that drum that is going to have a natural vibration, and that vibration is not just going to cut short. That's not a natural thing. In the computer, you can create these intentional moments of silence that can be really, they can add a lot to a track. I know that sounds a little funny, but it's very true that again, to refer back to Ilgates, who is someone that I've learned a lot of what I know from, reductive mixing, taking things out of your mix as opposed to trying to pile more things in. You know, finding the simple, stripped down sounds that you want to be working with and making them sound the best that they can be. So instead of, you know, trying to have all of these crazy, different, intricate loops that you've made with your drums, just creating, you know, a group of maybe 8 variations of that drum loop that you really like, and then using the same loop for the first 3 bars and having the 4th bar be one of the variations, just so that at the end of each of a 4-bar sequence, you have a variation that adds a little bit of life and adds a different kind of a feel to it. With the hi-hats, again, that's something that I love to do, is to just chop them up really, really small. You can get really detailed and make these very, very quick rolls that... So yeah, that's a basic kind of 101 on how to put a track together, and I apologize again that we weren't able to have the actual audio coming through for you guys today, but I am going to make sure that I can make that happen for next week. As well as for next week, I wanted to let you guys know I did reach out to Ilgates' team over at the Producers Dojo, and they have given me permission to use some of their sample packs. So once we do figure out this audio issue, I am going to meet the I'm going to bring those samples into the lessons so that we can also have that be a part of what we're working with, and we'll also start working with the instruments that come with the program, as well as doing effects and creating effects chains. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being a part of it. I think we still have a few minutes, so I'm trying to figure out what else I can just touch on. really, if you took part in this and you enjoyed it and it's something that you're interested in, I love teaching music, and I would really really love to go more in depth in this. As soon as I can share the audio that is coming out of my computer with you guys, it'll make it much easier to follow along on a tutorial, obviously, and I can then also kind of answer questions through the chat window if you have anything specific on production. Yeah, so my best, the advice I would try to give to anybody out there that was taking part today and wants to continue to do this would be get yourself an account set up on SoundStation, or sorry, on Soundation, and start just playing around. Start dragging loops out of their sample packs onto the timeline, and you can't break it. It's a it's an online music production workspace that is free to use, and if you mess it up, start it over. It's not it's just like anything else in the building process. Anything with STEAM education, it's one of the main things that we like to talk about is when something doesn't work, that's a way to problem solve what's not working and how to do it better. So take that same approach that you would take in education to the music. Look at it as an opportunity to expand your skill set and figure things out. And whether your goal is to become a professional musician or just to have something that you can do just as a passion that you love, then it's something that this is it's a great skill to have. All right, and I think I'm gonna have to wrap it there. I have to run really quick to take a call that my wife is on in the other room that they need me for. So I apologize, and thank you guys so much. I apologize for the hiccups today for the audio issues, but we're gonna get that sorted out, and I will be doing another tutorial next week. So please do come back online, and I look forward to sharing more of this with you. Play with Soundation, get comfortable with it, and let's take it further the next step. Okay, thanks everybody for taking part, and I really do appreciate your time. And everybody stay safe out there. I know things are a little crazy right now, but stay with family, stay close to the people you love, and we'll all get through this craziness together. So smiles on everybody's faces, and let's make some cool music. I hope you guys enjoyed today's workshop, and I will see you guys again next week. Thanks for everything.